I got to come up and introduce these guys. Thanks. My old buddy sitting here in the middle. Today we got, later on we got EPA is going to talk, so it'll be real nice. We got Tandem, which everybody has 1,000 questions for her. And then Todd Bennett's also back in town the way it looks, and he's sitting back here. He's going to talk the second half. To start out today, we have Ryan and Chris, and they're from Mantaf Biofuel. And I've actually had firsthand experience. They were out at our plant, and they have, I think you'll be very interested in your ideas. So,
I'll try to keep it interesting today.
Anyway, here they go.
All right, so is this so just you guys can hear me, or so everyone? Because I can be plenty loud. Ooh, so if I trip and fall on the cords, everyone will see. All right. All right. Okay, can I wander around a little bit?
Yeah, go this way just a tad. There you go.
All right. All right, first, can everyone hear me okay? Good, good. All right, well, thank you for coming, and thanks, Kent, for helping to get this set up. I'm going to try to keep it interesting today. So, as you can see, we are originally a biofuel company by history, but we're working in wastewater, so there's certainly an interesting story there to tell. I'm Ryan, this is Chris. So the first thing we're going to do is just give a little bit of background on the company, a bit of the company's history, to kind of tell you how we got into this space. So while we haven't been working in wastewater all that long, we've actually been purifying water for close to 10 years. And so we have a fair amount of experience at that. We'll get into kind of what we do and how our system works. Some of it should be pretty familiar. Some of it might be new. And then show you the pilot runs that we've done, and some of them in Illinois. All right, so the first thing is that, I'm going to step back here just a bit so I can see. So I founded this company about 9 years ago, and we've been working in cleaning water, mostly actually removing algae from water, suspended algae, for close to 10 years. And I've got kind of an interesting background in that I grew up on a farm in Ohio, grew up on a 2,000-acre grain farm, and so I don't mind getting my hands dirty. It's actually my hands right there. But I also have technical training, and so the technology I'm going to show you today is stuff that I came up with during my graduate work. And so I'm kind of an odd duck, having both this kind of practical background and technical background. And so what our company has done is we've taken this technology and scaled it from working in a tiny little test tube like this to various prototypes, some of them more ugly than others, to a fully autonomous system that can basically process and clean water continuously by itself. All right, and so historically, this is what the company has done. So we've grown algae, harvested it, converted it to crude oil. And the way we would grow the algae is actually pretty similar to how the algae would grow in a lagoon system, except for we're using chicken manure to grow it. And then we are using our magnetic harvesting system to separate it out of the water, and then converting it to crude oil. And we're using this process called hydrothermal liquefaction, which is a bit of a mouthful. But essentially, this is a continuous flow pressure cooker, and it converts that algae, the stuff that you guys probably see growing in lagoons, into something that looks like that. And so that you can actually take and distill into renewable gasoline, diesel fuel, jet fuel. You can get asphalts, plastics, all sorts of cool stuff. The difference is that you are farming it instead of drilling for it. And so again, I said I grew up on a farm. About half of my family's corn goes to ethanol. This is just kind of the next step in that. So at this point, you might be wondering, how did these guys get into wastewater? Because it doesn't seem like the transition is too easy. And basically where we got to is we were working on finding a filtration system to put on the end of our separator, like a polishing system. And we were working with one of our vendors, and unfortunately the system he had didn't work for us. But he mentioned that lagoon operators often have issues with algae, with suspended algae. And so he gets calls from them all the time to deal with that, but unfortunately his system doesn't work that well for that. But the system we have was purpose-built to do exactly that. And so it does it very effectively. And so what we did is we basically started calling around. We've talked to about, 3 dozen people in different states, including Illinois, to see if there's actually if that is actually an issue. And basically what we heard is this, which is that during warm weather, you can get overgrowth of kind of suspended algae. It can mess up TSS. This issue is usually temporary, but it's difficult to deal with. Best way to solve it would be if you just put in a mechanical plant to fix the problem. And the but there, which we've heard many times, is that, yeah, you can do that, but that's going to take a lot of money. You're going to have ongoing increases in operating costs, and you're going to have to find an operator to run that. And what we've heard is that finding an operator for lagoons can be challenging enough. Finding operators for a mechanical plant would be even harder. And by the way, if you guys have any questions, feel free just to stop me whenever. Happy to answer any questions. All right, and so this is actually, when you look into it, this is actually a fairly widespread issue. About 60% of lagoons have issues meeting compliance. Every red dot on this map is one of those spots. This is according to US EPA. So you can see this is pretty widespread. And when you look into what those issues typically are, BOD, TSS, fecal coliform bacteria, kind of the top ones. And then you have several others going down the line. And the ones with the red arrows, these are the ones that our machine can actually help with. All right, and so what do we actually do? So our machine is essentially a self-contained mobile water treatment system. At the simplest level, it's dirty water in, clean water out. And so you can see some of the water going in, some of it going out, and you can see the difference there. And I'll show you the actual numbers in just a bit then. And so we typically get about 90% of the contaminants out, TSS, phosphorus, algae. But the core kind of process that we use has been used in wastewater treatment for decades. It's kind of a metal coagulant process with a bit of a twist. And so we should also get out things like BOD, fecal coliforms, heavy metals, a whole bunch of other things as well in the process. This is useful for kind of any temporary problem, days to months. And it uses this magnetic separation technology. And what that really allows is to decrease the footprint, to really compact the footprint. And I'll get into that in a little bit. And so this is what our system looks like. And so the question is, okay, how does this thing actually work? What's kind of the magic that's inside of this trailer? And so it's using pretty standard chemical coagulation technology with a bit of a twist. So probably most of you guys have seen this before, but this is kind of chemical coagulation. You got, in a nutshell, you got wastewater coming in, you add a coagulant. Typically these are metal salts such as ferric chloride or alum, but there's others as well. And with mixing, you start to get coagulation. You start to get these smaller particles coming together into larger ones. And then you add a flocculant, and this kind of brings these particles together into larger flocks. And those flocculants can come in, there's piles and piles of different ones, but the most common ones are polyacrylamides. And essentially what you end up with are these large flocks. Flocks can then go and settle out. You get clean water off the top, flocks settle to the bottom. And so you have coagulation, flocculation, sedimentation. All right, what we do is almost all of that is the same with what we do, but it's got a bit of a twist to it. So we add magnetite in the beginning, and so magnetite is essentially just magnetic sand. If you've ever been to a beach and you see like black stripes in the beach, that's magnetite. It's actually used in making steel as well. It's just essentially a magnetic mineral. So we add that to that process, and now in the end, those flocks are actually magnetic. And so you can take a magnet and you can pull them right out of the water. It's pretty cool. And what also is different, instead of letting the stuff settle, we do magnetic separation on the end of that process. And that allows us to basically do that separation vastly faster. And so I can drone on all day about that, but it's always better to show than tell. And so this is what the process looks like at small scale. So we have beaker with some algae. We have magnetite, ferric chloride. Quickly get flocculation. And then you put it on a magnet, and very rapidly, what you end up with is nice clear water. And so before and after, and believe it or not, on the machine, it's actually even quicker than that. Because that's just batch run. The machine is continuous flow. And so while adding this magnetite might seem a little exotic, it's actually used by Evoqua. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Evoqua. They're a pretty large wastewater treatment company. Sorry. Can you move it over just a little bit this way? Is that possible? All right. Thanks. So Evoqua uses this sort of process at a pretty large scale, at 5 to 10 million gallon per day plants all around the country. But there's a bit of a difference. What they do is they add this magnetite and it makes those flocks heavy, and they sediment the stuff out. And so that drastically speeds up the process, but still not as fast as kind of what we can do. And we're working with them right now. We actually have a pilot that we're scheduling for. It's probably going to go this month or next month, because they're actually interested in using the technology that we have. But what we do differently is we actually do that magnetic separation. And this is one of the plants that's near us. This is where we're going to actually be doing that pilot. This is Marley Taylor. And this is about I think a 4 MGD plant. All right. And so just to kind of make it a little bit easier to tell what the difference is, as a reminder, once you get that flocculation, you let the stuff settle out, you let it sediment to get clear water going off the top. Our system, we're using these magnetic discs. These are actually magnets that we custom make, custom machine. And we do magnetic separation. And to put some numbers to it, if you're working with a 100 gallon per minute system, you're doing kind of a traditional gravity sedimentation, you might need a detention time of about 60 minutes. You might need up to 4 hours, but that's at least a starting point. With Evoqua's system, they call it ballasted, a ballasted system. They add that magnetite, again, that sticks, that makes those flocks heavy, and they settle out rapidly. And so they claim that they can increase that or decrease that detention time by about 10 times, so about 6 minutes. With our system, that separation step takes about 5 seconds. And so you can go from 60 minutes down to 5 seconds. And so that's why we can actually make this mobile. And part of that comes down to the amount of just water weight that you need to have for this. So for traditional system, same thing at that flow rate, you need about 50,000 pounds of water inside the system. If it's a built infrastructure, it doesn't really matter. If you're trying to make it mobile, that matters kind of dearly. And so with Evoqua's system, you could take that down to 5,000 pounds. With ours, that's down to 67 pounds. And so you have a lot less weight in the system and a lot less just volume of water. And so that's kind of the real difference right there, is because we can separate so quickly, we don't need nearly as much space. All right, so this is what our system actually looks like. this is the separator on the inside. This is all right now within an 8.5 by 16-foot trailer. And you can tow this when and where you need it. It can run on a generator. If you have mains power, you can also run it on mains power. So it's highly mobile, easily deployable, and it's autonomous, and it's highly scalable. And so the way you add more processing capacity is you add more of these disks. So essentially what happens is you get over here, you get your first coagulation in this tank, and then you get flocculation in this tank, flows to this, and this does the magnetic separation. And so that's how the process works. Again, so I can talk about it, but I can show you how this system actually gets deployed. You can tow the system to where you need it, open it up, really quickly deploys. Everything runs off a generator. This is also commercial for Honda. Put the inflow in, get the outflow set up. Relatively quickly, you can have nice, clear water coming out. When you're done, everything packs up, and you can leave. Does anyone have any questions so far? Nope. So I would say that, right now, the idea is that the model I think that we want to use is to find a local contract operator and partner with them, and then they can get called in basically when and where the problem is, and then leave. Mostly because it's temporary, it doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense for the facility to buy that machine. But that's something that we're definitely happy to hear what you guys think. What's the best way to go with this? All right, so this pilot unit also has some lab capacity built into it. So we can show up on site, optimize the chemistry, get everything set up. Once that's tuned in, then the machine can just basically run continuously. We also have some analysis capacity on there, and so we can right away see whether or not the machine is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, including TSS, total phosphorus, turbidity, algae cell counts, DO, pH, alkalinity. We can do a few other things. Basically, we can really quickly see, is everything working properly? And that's Sanjana basically doing some of that work inside the trailer. So we're actually doing lab work inside the trailer. We've done this in all sorts of different conditions, all the way from 15, 20 degrees, all the way up to about 100 degrees. So we're pretty adaptable. So I think the next question you guys are probably wondering is, okay, does this actually work? And proof's in the pudding. That's why we did pilots. We did a pilot at Dave's facility here. We've done several pilots in Maryland, but to show that the system actually does what we say it can do. All right, so I'm going to show you pilots with a variety of different feedstocks going into the system. So this one was actually done in retention ponds in Maryland. So we did 3 retention ponds. These are different than probably what you guys are used to dealing with, but I just want to show some of the range of what can be done. And so here, these are much more sediment heavy, less things like algae and bacteria in there. Pretty low phosphorus by wastewater treatment standards, parts per billion. But they're interested in getting the water down to 25 parts per billion, so very, very low. And these were summer conditions, so very warm water, almost bath water. And so again, proof's kind of in the pudding. Here's the inflow, here's the outflow, and so you can visually see it's much cleaner. And here's the numbers. Inflow, outflow, percent change. So you can see we take the turbidity down dramatically, phosphorus down below their limit. pH, alkalinity, and dissolved oxygen are essentially unaffected. And this is something that's universal when we're running the system. The other kind of important water quality parameters don't get impacted. All right, so this is a lagoon that we did in Maryland. So again, high turbidity, algae, TSS, phosphorus. And these are early fall conditions. It's fairly warm out still. We were in t-shirts when we did this. And you can see, again, inflow, lots of algae, outflows, pretty clear. And you can see the numbers with the inflow to outflow and the percent reduction. So over here, we're looking at between 91 and 98% reduction. And so we get pretty quick cleanup of the water. All right, so this is another lagoon that we did. You can see inflow versus outflow. High turbidity, algae, TSS, phosphorus. A little bit cooler here, water's starting to cool down. And I'm gonna keep mentioning that because one question we get a lot is, okay, if this can work in the summer, can this work when the water's cold? And we've ran this system all the way down to where the water is just a few degrees above freezing. So basically, if the water is not solid, if we can pump it, we can run it. So here, again, you're getting, on the low end, 83 up to 91%. Nice knockdown of turbidity, TSS, phosphorus, the algae cell counts. Going from 142 there down to 24 in one step. All right, and so this is one of the jobs we did in Illinois. And so this is lagoon, high turbidity, TS phosphorus. You can see nice, again, the visual change is fairly stark. You're going from 71 NTU down to 34. And TSS is dropping as well, and phosphorus as well. So nice removal. Does anyone have any questions here at this point? Yeah. So these were all taken within the lagoon system. So we basically took from within and put it back into the system as well, just to keep everything, so we're not actually discharging out of the system. So this number is, it's probably some of the worst case you could see, but yeah, you could take it from outflow and clean it up, but we got to get all the correct permitting in place before we can do that. This is just to show the technology can work. Does that answer your question? All right, sorry, keep wandering over here. And so these were in winter conditions. I think air temperatures were around 20 degrees at this point. I remember talking with Kent, standing outside. It's a bit chilly that day. All right. And so this is at Dave's facility, Toluca. And so this lagoon, high turbidity, algae, TSS, phosphorus. And this was actually, we ran this pretty close to the inflow of the system to essentially get the dirtiest possible water we could get. Again, give the system a good challenge. And inflows 42, outflows 7, 76, 16, and then phosphorus 3.2 down to called 0.1. And visually, you can see, pretty large difference, inflow versus outflow. And then the last pilot we did in Illinois is actually an activated sludge plant. So here, what we're doing is we're not targeting removal of turbidity, although you can see that we did clean up the water just a little bit. This is actually targeting removal of phosphorus. And so I know in smaller plants right now, they're not regulated for phosphorus, but pretty much to a person, everyone we've talked to has said that it's not there yet, but they expect it to be coming at some point. And so that was kind of the challenge that we were working with. And this particular facility has I believe it's a metal plating company that's on it. And that company intermittently causes the phosphorus levels to go quite high, and the system can't remove that phosphorus. And so here we're taking it from 5.7 down to 0.43. And so that's what we were testing with this one. Yeah, the clear water and the cold water together definitely make it a bit harder. Dirty, dirty warm water is by far the easiest because there's a lot of stuff there to kind of pull together into those flocks. But yeah, that colder water, and that was another cold day. I remember standing out there. Yeah, that was a bit more of a challenge, but the system performed really well. Once we got tuned in, the machine just runs like a sewing machine. So in all these cases, we're able to rapidly get set up, get same day, basically get set up in the same day, and kind of operate through once we got set up. We had good stability across a variety of different conditions and weather conditions, feed conditions. So I showed basically from kind of pretty clean water all the way to pretty heavy, heavily high TSS water, a lot of phosphorus, different temperatures, all the way from bath water to just above freezing. And in all those cases, we get around 90% removal of kind of those target contaminants. All right, so it's kind of a summary, and then I'll quit talking. You guys can ask me some questions. So just to remind you, what we're using is really well-known kind of chemistry. We're using metal coagulation chemistry, which has been used for decades, and adding the magnetite itself has been used by Evoqua at massive scale for a long time. So there's nothing new there. What is new is this separator. And so those magnetic discs, which are a whole heck of a lot of fun to figure out how to make those just right, but that's kind of the secret sauce. That's what allows us to actually separate this stuff so efficiently. And that's also why Evoqua wants to work with us, because we can make their system even more efficient. Let's see here. And that's really what allows us to shrink footprint and allows us to put all this on the trailer. Without that, you still couldn't move this around nearly as easily. So right now we're engaging with Illinois EPA. We've got a good idea of kind of what needs to be done to move this forward. It looks like it would be probably a construction permit. Once that construction permit is in place, then you could kind of keep doing this on an as-needed basis. And you need an operator that's likely licensed properly, and so that's part of the reason we want to work with a contract operator in the area. And but we think all that's pretty doable to get out there, but we are looking for partners in the area. And then kind of the last thing is that the one pretty cool thing about this technology is you can use it for a lot of things. I talked about lagoons. Talking to operators, it seems like there's a really good fit there. It seems like we can really solve a pain point. But we're doing the pilots with Evoqua. We're doing actually 3 different test cases within their system. And we're working with Maryland Port Authority right now. So Maryland Port Authority has kind of a unique use case. So they have within the Chesapeake Bay, they have these huge shipping, basically the ships that bring all these shipping containers in. But the Chesapeake Bay is pretty shallow. And so what they have to do is dredge out and make a channel. And then all that material that they dredge out, they put in these enormous 100-acre holding ponds. Once that stuff settles out, they have to release it. But they haven't actually been able to release that water for 7 months because the water doesn't meet their permit, basically. And so you can imagine they keep doing this, they keep dredging, and that water level keeps going up, and they're getting a little stressed about what they're going to do next. And so we're working with them. There's also 2 large lake management companies. So these are companies that what they specialize in is cleaning up ponds and lakes, and they're interested in using this technology to basically as part of their services. So one thing is you get ponds that have toxic algae, for example, and people want to get rid of that toxic algae. So this is one thing you could use that for. But that's So there's a lot of different places that you can use the technology, but we think lagoons are a pretty good fit, it seems like. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and thank you guys for your attention. I'll be happy to take any questions. Excellent question. And so, hold on a second here. Let me get ready. It's actually pretty simple. And so those discs, what they do is, so half of them is in the water, and the water is flowing past the bottom of the discs, and the stuff basically sticks to the magnets. And then about every 2 minutes, those discs rotate around, and there's a scraper that scrapes that material off. That material gets collected, and then kind of what you do with that, there's different options. One option is that it can go back into kind of the headworks of the lagoon. At that point, it will settle very rapidly, and so you could basically store it there. You could take and dewater that further. You could landfill it. You can strip the biological stuff off of it, reuse the magnetite, and it could go to a larger kind of wastewater treatment plant into the headworks. So those are kind of the options of what you can do with it. Ultimately, one thing that we'd like to do, it's not where our focus is actually take that stuff off and turn it to fuel. And so you take something that's kind of a problem and then you make gasoline out of it. Yeah, any?
I was just wondering, is there any way to recover the magnetite if a one-time use? I just wondered how much of it can be extracted and reused again, so that we're not
So it's,
continuously supply.
you can 100% recycle it. That's exactly what Evoqua does in their system. They strip the stuff off the magnetite, send it back to the front, and we can do that in our system as well. The system right now doesn't have that capability, but that's something we are actively developing, and we should have incorporated, I would say probably 6 months to a year at this point, but yeah, you can definitely recycle it. It actually works better. The system actually works better when you use the recycled material, because it's already got some stuff stuck to it, so it's a little stickier.
Do you always see this as being just kind of like a tertiary treatment of kind of polishing, or what kind of treatment ahead coming into your system is required compared to like raw sewage coming in? I was just wondering, is it always just going to be kind of this polish to just knock out that last bit of solid material, or do you see it being able to handle higher strength waste, or I'm just curious?
So I think it can probably handle higher strength stuff. Like I said, at Dave's facility, we are actually, our intake was right near where everything was coming into the lagoon. I mean, literally the intake was over there, and the inflow of the lagoon was over there, and our intake was right there. And I think that's certainly one thing that Evoqua was interested in. So they settle the material. But you could potentially put this system in there and shrink that down. Because one of the ways that they sell their system is if you have a large wastewater treatment facility, but it's kind of hedged in on all sides and they can't really expand, you can get more capacity out of the existing facility. And this just allows them to do that to even greater degree. And we have had people ask us about having permanently installed systems. That's not how it's developed at the current point, but I think that's something that could be done. Yep. Thanks. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna keep it. The pointer, is that what that is?
Yeah, but it's got to go into the. Yeah, he's giving the other line.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it might be handy just to have some way to advance. Oh, okay.
Oh, from his thing. Yeah, I will do that.
So, it is on the top. Forwards, backwards, don't hold this button.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure what it does. It causes the thing to like
The big red button, don't press that one.
cycle through different like links on there, but yeah, just don't hit that one.
Gotcha.
It'll be good.
Thank you. Probably DWPC something. I'd go up. Well, I thought it was DWPC, but oh, yeah, date, sorry. Let me just, okay. All set? Okay. What was that? Is it high enough? Coming through. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Todd Bennett with the Illinois EPA. I am currently the Water Pollution Control Field Operations Section Manager. As many in this room probably know, I worked in the Peoria Regional Office as an inspector from kind of the summer of 2014 up until February of 2021. So I had about 7 years that I worked in the Peoria Regional Office as an inspector. So I'm still struggling with. I still work in Peoria 2 days a week. So I still kind of claim the Peoria region is my own. It's kind of hard to break free of that. Yes, a little higher. All right. Hopefully this is better, and I'll try to speak up. But so yes, what I wanted to do was just give. I mean, I know
that this group and the staff that I have in Peoria, you're getting to know them work pretty well. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of a snapshot about who we are, what we do across the state, and the work that, again, the field operations section is responsible for. So just to kind of, the state is broken up. We have 6 regions currently. As some of you may know, our Rockford office, we don't have any staff there, so it's put pressure on my Des Plaines staff and Peoria, where we've had to push north in Peoria and push west in Des Plaines to cover the responsibilities up in the northwest part of the state, which has been a challenge, but we continue to do our best to meet those needs. So especially, I mean, just here, my staff in this office, we've picked up Carroll, Whiteside, Bureau, Putnam, and LaSalle. So that's been a learning curve there with just getting some of those facilities that haven't been visited for a while and get some visits set up, get the relationship established. I just wanted to go through real quick. The Des Plaines office, Region 2, is my largest region with regard to the number of facilities. It's also my largest staff. I currently have 6 inspectors. I just lost one this last month, and it's my only office that has a regional manager. That's probably a thing of the past. When he retires, he'll probably be the last one of my staff. And then the Peoria region, of course, you're hopefully familiar with the staff. They're all here today. But again, this, just to kind of brag a little bit about, this is the staff. Thankfully, I have the time to be with them. I can develop the way that I want to do things. They have picked up the way that I like to do things. So this region in particular, I think we have a really solid beginning. And again, Paul's been with us, what is it, 4 years now? 4 years. So a young staff, but motivated. They like the way, I like the way that they do things because it matches the way I did things. And so anyway, young staff, but a really solid. And one of the things, Brandy, that we did is we broke it up into sub-regions. So just so you know, like for Peoria, Woodford, and Tazewell, Shannon is the assigned engineer for these 3 counties. And then Ben Neuendorf has Bureau, LaSalle, Stark, Marshall, and Putnam. And then Paul has Rock Island, Henry, Whiteside, and Carroll. And then Kyle has Mercer, Knox, Fulton, and the rest of toward the Mississippi River. So that way, every staff, they have their designated counties, so they can focus their attention on making sure they get their work plan worked out. They can get and get a lot of these facilities that may have not been visited. We've been short-staffed, and that's one of the things that we're still suffering from decisions that were made 15, 20 years ago. Now we're kind of paying the price with regard to staffing levels. About 50% of my staff is ready to retire. The other 50% is basically less than 5 years of experience in the field. So I'm basically looking at, I'm rebuilding my program and strengthening it and getting the staffing where it needs to be. But just to go through my other counties, I don't know if we have anyone that's kind of on this part, but I've got 4 staff there currently. Again, 2, Amelia and Daniel, brand new, just at 6 months now. So Region 5 is, I've got 3 staff. Whoop, I keep hitting the wrong button, sorry. 3 staff in that office. That's actually my less concentrated with regard to facilities. Collinsville, I'm down to actually just 2 inspectors, and Joe Steitley, he's a lead worker out of the Marion Regional Office. We're pretty thin here, but we're working on it. And then Marion Regional Office down south, I've got 4 Again, Joe, he's kind of the lead worker down there. But yeah, just looking ahead, over the last 2 years that I've been in this job, we've added some, but we've been losing some. So we haven't really gained ground on the staffing level to be able to meet the needs, which we're going to get to next. But I'm waiting on HR. I should be posting like five positions, two up in the Des Plaines, one here in Peoria, one in Collinsville, and one in Marion. So just to continue to make progress to get our staffing where it needs to be. So this is a snapshot of just all the different inspections that we are required to do. Again, this slide is for our federal requirements. This is the MPDS program. So again, the majors, minors, combined sewer, sanitary, this would be what we can kind of consider our core program. And then we have our stormwater program is MS4, industrial and construction stormwater. And then down here at the bottom, we have our livestock program, our CAFO program. So we have all these commitments. This is the universe of facilities that we have in the state. And then we have certain commitments that we're committing to the US EPA that we will conduct inspections on a certain frequency, and we're working on it. As you can see, like these are last year's numbers that we conducted 937 inspections, so we're about 80% of where we need to be. And again, that comes down to our staffing levels and just the areas that we are trying to get the work done. It's just one thing of note, like our construction stormwater, we actually contract out those inspections to the soil and water conservation districts in 5 different counties. So this is an inspection load that we're still not meeting. And so it's just showing we have work to do to increase our staffing so that we can cover all the responsibilities. So again, that last slide was our federal requirements for US EPA. Then these are our additional requirements that kind of everything else that's covered by our state responsibility. So we have all the different complaints that come in, the final loan inspections, just follow emergency response. Radionuclide, we have to go out 4 times a year to all the nuclear power plants. And then it's just just all these kind of miscellaneous things. But what this really shows is that my staff is responsible to have experience in all these different program areas, and that we don't have specialized just municipal wastewater treatment plant inspectors and stormwater inspectors and livestock inspectors. Everybody's required to have a working knowledge of all of these different program areas, which again is a challenge, especially for young new staff to get up to speed on all of these different, all the different rules, all the different regulations, all the different, just the science and the way that wastewater treatment plants work, industrial treatment, all the different treatment technologies. So it's a challenge for my young staff to get up to speed. So we try to take advantage of the experienced staff that are around. I give this presentation to a lot of different folks. I know this isn't so much of a stormwater, but one thing I wanted to note is that our permit section is basically rebuilding a stormwater permitting program. It's an area where we just have been very short on staffing on the permitting side to give the proper review and for the SWIPs that come in. And so this probably doesn't affect this group as much, but it is something that is in the works. They're going to hire a manager, a lead worker, and several devoted permit engineers for the stormwater program. This is where I wanted to spend most of my attention because I think it applies most to this particular group. We have, and for those who have been doing NetDMR for a number of years, this is the e-reporting rule. This is a US EPA federal requirement that we are transitioning into the electronic information age for the reporting. So since December of 2016, the phase one aspect of this e-reporting rule is that DMRs. And I think Illinois in particular has been ahead of the game with regard to moving forward. And so I think a lot of the problems have been worked through, a lot of the issues that we've addressed with getting adjusted to the net DMR system. Well, that's just phase one. So phase two is, as you can see here in this green, is just that by the end of December of 2025, and that date is coming up very quickly for me and for Kathy Siders in our compliance assurance section, to get all of our notices of intent and reports, especially program reports for any general permits that we issue have to be going through this. For those that are you familiar at all with the construction stormwater permit, RILR 10? If not, that's the first phase. It was actually it's brought on. It's in this net system. We're still working through some kinks and getting access to that information and the process. But everything for these general permits, so that includes like our general lagoons system permits, our MS4s. So all of these general permits will be transitioned to this net system by the end of December of 2025. One of the other key things is that some of the reports, the program reports that come from our other MPDS, this is individual MPDS permits, especially SSO and CSO notifications will be brought into this net system. And so we're working, again, I checked with Kathy before I came here today to kind of where are we on the timelines. Again, we're waiting on the permit section to get some things established, but we're thinking hopefully we're going to get the industrial stormwater general permit into the system by the middle part of this year. And then the SSO and CSO, that's the next on the list. So that is for all of the reporting of CSOs and SSOs are going to be through this electronic reporting system. And so that's what I just wanted to make sure that particular element gets on your radar. Again, we're hoping by the end of this year, but it's been a difficult process to get put in place. But this is something that will definitely affect all the programs in this room, all your sanitary sewer systems, and making sure that we're getting that. So that you'll hear more as we get closer to the implementation. And then I wanted to just give a little bit of just an overall summary of like some of the bigger things that we're working on at the state level and federal level. One of the big things was that US EPA had this initiative to try to reduce significant non-compliance. There's just certain violations are classified as significant, others are not. But to get the overall significant non-compliance rate down for all the facilities, not just here in Illinois, but through the whole country. And so that was the end of 2022, and we met those goals. The way we met those goals was basically through a lot of cleaning up a lot of paper violations and things, but now we're down to the difficult ones. We're realizing all the small systems out there that are struggling with ammonia effluent and trying to get what we can do to help get that number down even further. But we're getting to these effluent violations where the technology, it just doesn't quite get the job done for a lot of these schools and mobile home parks and all these little systems out there that just don't have the technology to really knock out, especially ammonia is one of the big effluent problems. Compliance assistance for small systems, again, right along that same line, there's been a big push for US EPA and I know Kent and Illinois Rural Water, and we have other partners out there that we're really trying to encourage, getting getting the support, just with regard to the technical, managerial, financial, all of these elements to give these smaller systems the support and get them connected to the right kind of funding to really help get these smaller systems into compliance. And so we very much appreciate everyone that we have work relationships out there but definitely encourage any small systems. I mean, whether it's a municipal or, I mean, even some of these more private systems, to just get connected to these. There's a lot of folks out there that want to help, and sometimes takes a little work to get folks connected. Environmental justice. This is an issue that's kind of come up. We've a presidential level, governor level initiative of just trying to encourage and focus to make sure that some of the marginalized communities and just the folks, and there's been a lot of effort, and I've gotten involved with, especially in our East St. Louis area, we have some just old dilapidated systems that have just not been maintained, and we're trying to, anyway, recover from 50 years of neglect, essentially. So, but environmental justice is something that we've been trying to incorporate just to kind of track, but it is a particular directive that we as an agency are supposed to incorporate, like what is the inspection work that we do on a daily basis, how can we show that we are basically being fair in the way that we're conducting our business to meet the needs of especially people that are really struggling financially or and just have systems that just are not being maintained. So that's one area. Sanitary sewer overflow reporting, I know we already kind of touched on that. That is something that we're just continuing to work to tighten. US EPA has been putting pressure on Illinois EPA, my section, compliance assurance section, again, Kathy Siders, to make sure that we're getting this information. And this is just a step toward that e-reporting element. But yeah, making sure that we are properly reporting these SSO events. And so it is something that we will be emphasizing here in the coming years is to get this more consistent and making sure we're getting the information we need at the right time to know, and so that we can track and see, okay, yes, this was maybe a one-time problem versus a more chronic problem that we need to address. And so we're going to be really paying attention to that. And the last one here, the per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, I can't pronounce it exactly, but PFAS. If you're not familiar with it already, this is you see it in the news. They talk about the forever chemicals. This PFAS is an issue that we currently don't have any limits. All we have are some health advisories, and that number keeps changing. But this PFAS, it's everywhere, but we don't know exactly what the regulations are going to show us, but it's starting to pop up. I had just one area that this has been an issue was in Decatur. A large industrial facility there in the Decatur area has had multiple foam releases, and it wasn't even a fire, it was an accidental, but this PFAS, so Lake Decatur is right there. And so anyway, it's brought a lot of attention to the facility. It's brought a lot of attention to the wastewater treatment plant. It's like, and then because ultimately our NPDES permits don't have a limit for PFAS, but if we know that there's an issue, this is going to be more and more and more of a problem with regard to NPDES permitting and what our facilities are discharging. And so just to keep an eye on that and the rules and regulations, again, they're probably 3-4 years down the road before we have anything really substantial, but it is a developing issue. And with that, that's the information that I wanted to share with you. Yeah, feel free, if you have any questions, reach out to me, my staff. I think you guys have a pretty good connection here, but yeah, any questions? If not, I'll hand it over to Tatum. Yeah. So, yeah, so the information that goes to NetDMR, that data is extracted and it goes into the federal database called ISIS. It's I don't know what ISIS stands for, but ultimately that's the US EPA's database for all water quality data, NPDES permit data goes into that system. And then ultimately that system then they use it for all their analysis and so within the state, like Kathy and her group we get reports and we generate, and some of that data then gets, like, if there's anything out of compliance, it tracks it to see if it's reportable or significant, different classifications. That's another thing that we're transitioning to a class 1 and class 2. Anyway, that Kathy can answer those questions better than I can. But it goes into these systems that then we track and automatically determine whether those limits or like reporting, like if there's a schedule, a compliance schedule for certain reports, if they're not being met, it'll flag whether we're in compliance or not. And then, but the main thing is that data in ISIS then goes to ECHO. If anyone's familiar with ECHO, this is the website that is basically the public face of that data. So you can go into this US EPA ECHO website and pull up any facility and get the compliance history. You can go in and see charts of the effluent data. And I mean, it's becoming interesting because interested parties, media, they are using ECHO and they're coming in and saying, we see this, all this non-compliance, what is the Illinois EPA, what is the US EPA doing about it? And so one of the things about the NPDES program is it's supposed to be a public, gives the public the opportunity to review and see this information. Well, ECHO is giving that capability, and a lot of folks are taking advantage of it, and so then we have to respond to questions coming in from the public about the compliance or what we're doing to address apparent non-compliance and that sort of thing. So did that answer your question, Brandy? It is. Yeah, and that is something. So it is automatic. It is not manually keyed in. So the reports that come in NetDMR, we have just systems to automatically extract that data and put it into ISIS. I highly encourage everyone, if you haven't, get on ECHO and check your own facility and see what's coming back. Is like one of the things. Just I was talking to Kathy the other day, or just yesterday, is like flow data was being putting it in NetDMR in the wrong units, and so it was showing like 100 million gallons for like this little tiny. So it's just when you go into ECHO, you can see, okay, if I've got a problem, maybe I can adjust the way that I've been submitting the data. Maybe I've been putting the data in the wrong units, and so just avoid problems by keeping an eye on your own, like what the public is seeing about your facility. I highly encourage checking out ECHO. Yeah.
I think you mentioned that the smaller systems are struggling with ammonia specifically.
Yes.
Are there other sort of, could you speak to some of the other struggles they're having?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is just ammonia is one of the big ones that we see, and that's difficult to address. A lot of it is just aging systems, but it seems like there's just been a particular emphasis on ammonia just because of the difficulty of some of these systems to be able to treat it effectively. That's the main. I mean, we get BOD and TSS problems. You get a lot of the algae. The green effluent is something that it's a problem out there, and it's been a problem for a long time. We haven't focused as much on that, but it is a problem that when we go out and do an inspection, we do follow up and try to make sure that we're addressing. But I would say ammonia and green TSS going out are some major problems.
So is that ammonia coming into the system not getting stripped out, or is that something that's happening within the system as much?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you get your raw. A lot of the systems that we've been trying to deal with are the septic tank sand filter kind of systems that you have a septic tank and that material comes in and it just kind of if you're not removing that sludge at a frequency, that ammonia keeps developing and increasing in concentration, and the sand filters don't really do anything to remove it. And so, yeah, those kinds of systems, that's where we're really struggling to help. And so there's only so much O&M you can do to improve that, but that's, yeah, it's usually not just ammonia pass through, but the biological breakdown, you get ammonia coming off the organic material.
I got a question. I know the major facilities at some point are probably going to have to meet a 0.5 milligram per liter phosphorus. Where do you see the smaller facilities discharging into creeks?
I don't know. I mean, I know that, I mean, we kind of touched on it. It's just, if you see in your permit where you need to start monitoring phosphorus and total nitrogen and these sorts of things, that's usually an indication that coming down the line is a permit limit. I do not know what the future holds for, like, what's going to be the threshold for the type of system and the nutrient effluent requirements for those systems. I just don't know. You could always reach out to the permit section. They may have a better idea of kind of where things are headed. But personally, I don't know where that is. I don't imagine it will be at the same level, but I cannot guarantee. Yes, Kent.
Did you want to mention real quickly about the IoT permit renewals that are coming out?
Yeah, so again, going back to the general permits, there were 3 general permits that were recently issued, and the permit section has been working to kind of churn those out. Please be watchful. And again, I didn't say it in my presentation, but I highly encourage you, read through your permit. It happens many, many times where you get a reissued permit and you just, okay, I've got my permit, I'm good to go. And there are changes. There are new requirements that you should be aware of, because we don't want 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road for you to be out of compliance because you didn't realize that there's a new provision in your permit. So please pay attention to what's in the permit, what the requirements are, and just make sure you adjust accordingly. But I do know that the permit section has been working through. There's a lot of those general permits for our lagoon systems, but they are working through those quickly. So if you did put in an application and you haven't seen it, it's in the queue, I'm sure. And if you have any questions about where the status of your permit application is for your system, I mean, you can always reach out and we can try to give you an update on where things are. Yeah. Yeah, personally haven't dug into I leave that to my staff to know what I wish I had the time to know all the fine details, but just, yes, read through your permit. And okay. Yeah, thank you. And
Thanks. I think I could do that one. Awesome. Did he have a clicker? Did he steal it? Oh, there it is. Oh no.
Top is laser, keep out people's eyes, and up and down. Don't hit that button.
Got it. Oh no.
That's self-destruct.
Oh no. Pressure's on. Good morning. My name's Tatum DeMay. I'm with the Illinois EPA. I work with operator certification. I've been with the agency for a little over 7 years now. I started as an intern and they tricked me into staying. What am I pointing at? Mm-mm. I didn't hit the self-destruct button either.
Was just working.
There it goes.
Hang on. Okay. There you go.
It's the down one?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's got an up and a down.
Got it. We have a relatively new operator certification unit, so drinking water and wastewater cert programs are now merged into one operator certification unit. We're under the drinking water compliance assurance section. I have a new manager of that section. Her name is Joey Logan Pugh. I'm the lead worker over Ops Cert. I have Adam Nutt and Kathy Andring. Kathy handles most of the wastewater cert questions. She also processes drinking water exam results. Adam Nutt handles a lot more on the drinking water side, but he's who you're going to talk to with any training provider questions. And we have a new intern. His name is Kevin Perkowitz. And if you're a contract operator, you've probably dealt with Kevin. Prior to that, it was Kayla Farron. He processes all of our contracts, our change in personnel forms. We have a general email address right here. It's epa.operatorcertification@illinois.gov. We all have access to that email, so if you ever have a question of who to contact, we can all see that email inbox and make sure your question gets to the right person. Kind of went over this exam scheduling. If you want to take an exam, you would call the Springfield office for Des Plaines and Springfield exams, and ERTC for any exams that are at ERTC. Exam requests, Kathy Andring handles wastewater, Adam handles drinking water. Same with applications for full certification. Renewals, I messed that up. Renewals, we're all hands on deck. We've got lots of renewals coming in last year and this year. Training provider applications go to Adam, and any kind of personnel changes and contracts go to Kevin. So our CERT program, that goes from the initial exam period to your renewal period. And every wastewater treatment facility is required to employ a chief wastewater operator at or above the level of their facility as specified in your permit. Group K and Group R, those are industrial systems. Those certificates are site-specific. The operator is jointly responsible with the owner of the facility for the operation of that facility. And as I'm sure you know, operators can be employed on contract. I'm not going to go over this too much. Group 1's our highest level of certification and facility classification. Group 4 is the lowest. Group K are our industrials, and Group R are our industrial remediation sites. Okay, back in 2019, we had changes to our operator certification regs go into effect. I hope by now you're relatively familiar with them, but if not, buckle up. These established renewal dates and renewal training requirements, and it also established our operator and training program for initial certification. So I'm going to go through the certification process because it is a little different. I'm guessing a lot of you guys in this room right now are already certified, but if you're going for a higher level or have somebody on your staff that's looking to get certified, it has kind of flipped in reverse. The first step is to take our test, and we no longer review full applications with experience before you take our test. The only thing we need to test is that exam request form, and that is essentially contact information and a few questions. You'll fill that out, send it to our office. There's no fees associated with anything certification-wise on the wastewater side of operator certification. Once we get that exam request form, we then send you a letter of admission, and they're no longer specific to a site or exam date. It's a general letter of admission. It's good for one exam attempt anytime within the year following that when that letter was sent. Then it's on the operator to call whichever exam site they want to take the test and schedule that test. Our sites are filling up quickly, not as quickly as they were right after COVID, but they are still filling up. So if you have somebody who thinks they want to take the test, I would recommend calling as soon as you think you want to take it. Especially up in Des Plaines, that site tends to fill up pretty quickly. You have to bring that letter and a photo ID to the test. 70% is still passing on those exams. If something happens and you don't pass the test, then you start this process over. You submit a new exam request form, we send you a new letter, you call us up, we go through that process. Once the operator passes the test, if it's a municipal license, class 1 through 4, they're notified that they're an operator in training. That's not a full certification yet. At that point, if they have the experience, then they can apply the day they get that passing score in the mail from us for full certification. And that's the big application that has your supervisor's signature. It has you list all your experience. Operator in training status is good for 5 years. So if you can come in, take the test off the street, if you pass, which some people do, some people don't, then go look for a job. Hey, look, I passed my test. All I need is this experience. Will you hire me? And it seems to be a leg up in that process. Anytime within those 5 years, the operator can apply for full certification. After 5 years are up, they'd have to retest. It's the same kind of story with collection systems and our industrial licenses. They're just not called operators in training. They get a passing score. They're not fully certified. They'd send us the full application for certification. Application review, per our regulation, we have up to 90 days to review those applications. We typically get them reviewed quicker than that. I will say, over the past 3 months, our operator certification program has had more IT issues than I've seen since I started with the agency. I don't know what's happening. So we've been held up by that a little bit, but hopefully we're back on track. I want to go over certification requirements because they did change a little bit from what they used to be. Every level, at least half of the required experience has to be hands-on at a wastewater treatment facility. Class 1 requires 6 years total of experience, and then the remaining time If you have 3 years hands-on at the wastewater treatment facility, it can be met through equivalent educational experience or other hands-on experience, and that would be collection system experience, a public water supply, or at a lab. Class 2 requires 4 years of experience total. Class 3, 2 years total, and Class 4, 1 year total. Our collection system licenses, those are not required for any facility. That's a voluntary certification. They don't expire. Those require 1 year total of experience, at least 6 months hands-on with a collection system. And then our Class K and Class R, those are a little different. Those are a written exam. The Class K are site-specific. They're graded by our permit section. If you work at the facility, that's your experience. There's no timeline for how long you have to work there. If you leave the facility, that certificate becomes invalid, and if the facility has significant process control changes, like something that would require a new construction permit, then the Class K operators would be required to retest. Let's get into renewals. So, fully certified wastewater operators are required to obtain a specified amount of training, and this is just for the Class 1 through 4 operators. The training has to be obtained within the 3-year period that the certificate's set to expire. The licenses are always going to expire on July 1st of whatever year it's due. It's always going to be July 1st. If you get more than the required number of training hours, they don't roll over. You're just smarter, but those don't roll over. Class 1 and 2 certificates require 30 hours of training. Class 3 and 4 require 15 hours of training. No more than 1/3 of that total can be of a non-technical or professional nature. So at least 20 hours have to be technical for Class 1 and 2. At least 10 have to be technical for Class 3 and 4. It's a little easier to explain what a non-technical course is. A non-technical course would be something like safety, first aid, management training, a computer course, like a basic computer course. If it's something like SCADA, that would be technical. Shoring and trenching, flagger training, non-technical. Julie locating course, non-technical. We're sending big lists of what's considered technical and non-technical with the renewal application, so hopefully that clears it up. A lot of times you guys know a lot better than me where that course falls. Our new courses in our database should have a prefix before the course title. WW is wastewater, DW is drinking water, and DC is dual credit, and that means it can be applied to both drinking water and wastewater certificates. If you're a person that has both of those certificates, those courses go to both at the same time. You don't have to pick and choose, oh, this is only for my drinking water, or this is only for my wastewater. And then the T, that means it's a technical course. An N, or sometimes you'll see an NT, that's non-technical. If it's an older course or a course that just doesn't happen to have that prefix and you need it cleared up, you can give our office a call or shoot us an email and we can take a look. I'll start with Class 3 and 4. If Class 3 and 4 operators that were certified during 2019 or earlier, they had an expiration date of July 1 of 22. Certified after 2019, you're on a 3-year cycle. So every 1 through 4 license is on a 3-year cycle. So we have about 26 Class 3 and 4 operators that are coming up for renewal this year, and those are the operators that were certified in 2020. Class 1 and 2 operators, if they were certified 2020 or earlier, they're coming up for renewal this July. Then anybody after that, they're on that 3-year cycle. We sent a big mailing out, I think it was this winter. If you didn't get it from us, it went to every wastewater operator. It went to all of our industrial operators, got a mailing. It went to all of the 1s and 2s that are going to renew this year, and it went to all of the expired 3s and 4s. So if you didn't get that from us, let us know. Maybe your address is wrong in our database, because we send about 12,000 letters out. kind of explaining everything that's going on. We are required to send renewal applications in the mail by April 1st. As we speak right now, they're stuffing envelopes. Those are going out real quick. The following must be done by July 1st. We need the renewal application form. It's a real easy renewal application form. It looks just like the drinking water one, if any of you guys are also drinking water operators. It'll ask you to tell us how many hours of training you have. It'll ask you to sign and date it. And then it'll ask a child support question that we're required to ask because it is a professional license. If that child support question does not apply to you, please check the box that says does not apply. If you don't check anything, we're gonna have to call you or send your application back. We also need record of the renewal training. So if you're in our database and it's in our database, that's great. But for these first renewal cycles, we're also asking for some kind of proof of training with that renewal. If you print off your training log from our website, that works great. We're also sending a training log that looks very similar to what Kent handed out. It's just got more spots to fill in. If you want to fill out that form, that's fine. If we don't receive the renewal application and the proof of training by July 1st, then the certificate is expired. Do any of you guys have drinking water and wastewater certificates? Okay. My advice is to stay organized with your renewal training, especially if they don't expire in the same year. There's not very many that got lucky with having the same renewal year. I've seen some people have like some nice color-coded Excel spreadsheets, if that's your thing. If not, no big deal. Because our database was only built to handle drinking water renewals, when your drinking water license renews, it's going to clear out everything in your training log. So make sure you're keeping record of your training somewhere else in addition to in our database. I hope your licenses expire the same year, but I bet they won't. I'm sorry. After July 1st, if you don't meet that renewal requirement, don't get the application into us, their certificate expires, but there's a 2-year restoration period. So anytime within those 2 years, if you get those 30 hours or decide, hey, never mind, didn't want to retire, I want to keep my license, you can send us your renewal application, send us all of your training, and we can restore your certificate. The new expiration date is going to be what it would have been if you renewed on time. So if you let your license expire this year in 23, you have until July 1 of 25 to send us that restoration, but it's still going to expire in 2026. And then if you pass, that's the grace period. You know, we come up to that 2-year mark and we get a lot of, on the drinking water side, we get a lot of drinking water operators saying, what about the grace period? Those 2 years were your grace period. After those 2 years, you have to start over, retest, reapply for certification. Collection systems, those don't expire. Those are good for forever as our rules read. Okay, last year we sent about 3,200 Class 3 and Class 4 renewal applications. These operators have never expired before. We don't know who's out there, who's still working in the field, who still lives in the state, who's still alive, quite honestly. 1,000 renewed. We haven't had too many restore since that initial expiration. If you are a Class 3 or 4 operator and think you should have renewed last year, or if you know someone who's a Class 3 or 4 operator that thinks they should have renewed last year, have them call us. It's very likely that we had an old, outdated mailing address, or something happened with the mail and they didn't renew. They have until 2024 to restore their license. This year, we're sending 2,691 Class 1 and 2 renewal applications. They're printed, they're stuff in the envelopes. I would expect they'll be out in the next couple of weeks. If you don't get it in the mail from us, give us a call. We can always email it over. You're gonna get a renewal application, a handout that's on pink paper that kind of explains the different training categories, and a training submission form from us. Industrial certificates, those are valid for 5 years. And I don't know if this is the right crowd for this, but I just want to throw it out there in case you know somebody. If they were issued in 2019 or earlier, it's going to expire in 2024, and they're just going to expire. There's no option for renewals for those. Class K operators have to retest. It's that written test that's graded by our permit section. And we have over 7,000 Class K operators in the state. So this is a huge undertaking for both us and the Class K operators. We've sent a form out to Class K operators and to facilities asking anyone who knows that they want to recertify next year to send us a form. We're going to start scheduling those tests, I would say, within the next month or two to start getting them going. How many operators are out there? I just wanted to throw this out there because it has changed drastically since last year's renewal period. And I expect it to again after this July. We have 1,800 Class 1 operators, 1,000 Class 2, 247 3s, and 627 4s. Those numbers dropped a lot. 532 collection system operators, 7,152 Class K certificates. We have some individuals who hold multiple Class K certificates since they're site-specific. And then 368 Class R operators. There's a lot of you guys. If you are all familiar with our operator certification database, it is broken. We had a firewall issue, is my understanding, with this website that started this week. We have a workaround for it. You have to use Google Chrome browser, and you have to clear your browsing history, essentially. These instructions are on our website, and they're also being sent with the renewal applications. When I followed these steps and got to the uncheck everything except cookies and other site data, that step, there was also a drop-down that asks the time frame that you want to clear all of this. I had to say for all time or else it wouldn't work. And then there's been a couple times this week that I've had to go in and redo this. So it is a pain. Our IT staff is aware. They're working on something, a fix for it. It's a very old web-based database, and I think the state IT people don't like the security of the website and have kind of tried to block it. So this seems to work for now. Hopefully they have something resolved. It doesn't seem like it'll be a quick fix. I can go more. Does anyone have questions right now? I hope so. So since I've started at the agency, they've been telling us they've been working on a new operator certification database. Our upper management is a lot more serious about it now because they see it is a big issue that's affecting operators, and it's affecting our staff. We're very limited in what we can do with that database. We've been in meetings talking about it. I don't think it'll happen tomorrow, but hopefully there's a little more traction with getting a new operator database. I hope you guys don't have to go through more renewal cycles like this. I hope it'll be a lot more automated and easier for you guys, but things move very slowly with technology at the state lately, it seems. Yeah.
So, in 2000, Dr. Calloway comes on to us. He originally told us that it was probably September 19th. Then we were told that if anything in 2019 does not count, is that correct?
So for Class 1 and 2 operators, it has to be anything. Your renewal training has to be taken if you're up for renewal this year between July 1 of 2020 and when you renew. That's how the regulation reads. We have to go based on what the regulation says. We're aware that those comments were made. Our management is aware. Ultimately, we have to go by the regulation. Those are our rules. That's our Bible. So anything 3 years. And then if you renew in like April of this year, if you send that form in real quick, your renewal cycle doesn't start until July 1st. So you kind of have this gray area. I'll throw that out there so you're not taken by surprise for next year's renewal. The renewal cycle is always going to start on July 1st. Yeah.
That operator inquired last week that they had sent the renewal information that had hours that they were earning March and July. Those hours, in order to be for the next renewal cycle, have to occur after July 1st, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's always July to July. I'll go through this really quick. This is our operator certification database. You can get to it on the agency website. The agency website's changed this week too. It looks a little different, but everything's still there. If you have old links to the website, they might not work. They might redirect you. They might redirect you someplace else, I've found. But you can get to the agency website, epa.illinois.gov. Then there's a big button that says water. If you click on that, there's a link right to wastewater operator certification. And that'll take you to a page that has a link to the wastewater operator database. This is what it looks like. And if you've never been on here before, you can register for an account to update your contact information, to see your certificates, and to see your renewal training if you want to track it through our website. You'd hit that register button, and it would take you to a page that looks like this. We don't want anything to do with your social security number. I forgot to throw that out there. I think it's still on some of our contract forms. I don't care about your social security number. We black it out. We really, really, really don't want it. On this page, you have to enter something in that box, enter 1111 or something like that, unless that is the last 4 digits of your social security number, then put something else in there. So you'll fill in your contact information. You'll hit register at the bottom. You'll get an automated email, but wait for that second automated email because we have to go in and link your registration to your actual account. So you'll get 2 automated emails, I hope. And then after that second one, it means it's time you're ready to log into this database. Once you log in, this is what your homepage is going to look like. If you have more than 1 license, they're going to show up right on this homepage, drinking water and wastewater. You might see some that say canceled over here. That means it was generated in error. It won't let us delete extra certifications, so we have to list them as canceled. Or if you're someone who has stair-stepped up from a 4321, we canceled out the lower level licenses and kept your highest level license because the highest level can operate at any facilities below. So you're not in trouble. They are canceled, but that's just kind of our placeholder in our database to keep your highest level license active. Otherwise, you'd be getting 90 hours of renewal training, and I don't think anyone wants to do that. If you click on this personal information page, that's where your address and everything is. So I would recommend to every operator in the state to go into this database, make sure their contact information is up to date. This should be a home mailing address because it is your license. It's not your work certificate. It is the individual's certificate. Make sure that's up to date. Phone number and email address, make sure those are up to date. You can also update your employment history if you want to with us. Okay, then there's this big gray button that says assign training at the top. That's what you're looking for your renewal training. You hit that and it'll take you to a page that looks like this, and the button you're looking for is add renewal training credit. Once you hit that button, a little pop-up box will pop up asking for a course number. Type in the course number right here, hit search, then a course should appear right here, and then this is the part that trips everybody up because it's not intuitive at all. You have to hit this little tiny select button that doesn't really look like a button at all. It's going to make everything bold, and then you hit the big select button to add your course into your training log. It should ask you for the date and location. If it's a webinar or online course or anything like that, just type in webinar, online, on the computer, whatever. Otherwise, just type the city that the course was taken in. And then it's going to pop up in this training log. As you add courses, they're going to appear in this log. It's not going to put them in any particular order, so if you think you added one in, it might be just caught in the mess of your training. And it also doesn't catch if you enter duplicate courses, so look for that because it might show you with a total of 30 hours, but really you accidentally entered a couple duplicate courses. We check for that when we review renewal applications. That's all I got. Does anyone have any other questions? Yeah. As long as it has, as long as we can see the course ID, if it has a course ID, the name of the course, the date of the course, the location, that's all we need. Operators are required to retain records of their training for 6 years after the training occurs. But we don't need copies of the certificates or anything. The log that we provide asks them to sign at the bottom, and the fine print says that it is a felony if you're lying on that form. They can. Right now I'm kind of recommending that they send everything with the renewal application just so we have it all together and can process it all at once. But you can send training as you take it. That's fine too.
Tell everybody that does a webinar, especially like the university, for instance, to get your certificate from them, and then once you get your ID number, I tell them to fill out one of these,
Mm-hmm.
the certificate, that's proof. After you watch it, they'll send you a certificate print off while the webinar. It may not be required, I've told everybody to do it.
That's fine. Yeah.
You got proof then.
Yeah.
John, spot too much, but for the system like we have, would that qualify for a Class K, since we have like
Oh,
a
gosh.
specific design thing that our company does?
I might defer that to my FOS friends.
Short answer is no. Generally, like, our Class A is for particular kinds of industrial wastewater treatment system. I mean, if it was incorporated into like an industrial versus a municipal, I could see it being a component of a Class A requirement, but only for that particular classification of permit. So it's attached to a municipal wastewater treatment plant, that's your Class 1, 2, 3, 4. But Class A, like any industrial facility, that, and it just depends on that permit for that MPS discharge. It designates whether it's Class A. And so if your system were to be utilized at to help with their, then yes, it could be. And so for the Class K, again, basically you're right out, like this is the system, it just demonstrates that you understand from start to finish that wastewater treatment system. And so if there's anything supplemental added and incorporated through a construction permit, that becomes part of that system. And then, yeah, so then a Class K would be required to understand that process, how generally it works, and how to maintain it.
I read about the different classes, and that's one reason I'm asking is because we know our system inside and out. We can run it in our sleep. Occasionally, I am in my sleep. Yeah, that's just one bit that we're working on negotiating. It's actually the best way to use it.
I think it would be, if it's made kind of a permanent part of a particular treatment system, that a Class K would be required. I think kind of that if there's, what exactly triggers a significant modification to an industrial wastewater treatment system, you may require new certification with Class K to incorporate that new technology.
It's what we use for all certification correspondence. It's not what you're going to get for any of your correspondence from our FOS section or our permit section. Or That's a good question.
So, are you talking with regards to just like a BN or, anything like that that might come up down the road, same thing, letters, something like that? I mean, generally, any of that kind of level of correspondence, we're looking at like compliance, it will go to the permittee, like usually, I mean, whoever was issued that NPDS permit, whether it's like the village of whatever city it is, that, we use that address generally for our primary violation notice or notification, for whatever purpose, but it'll go to the permittee, not to directly to the operator. Is there any way to CC that to the operator? I mean, our small villages, a mail goes to the treasurer. That is yes, that we've had that problem come up where there's miscommunication and but we would generally be encouraged, especially if our field staff is involved with a particular issue. The problem is where, like compliance section, they're issuing a violation based on effluent data, like we had talked about earlier, that comes up through NetDMR. And so that's not generated by my staff. So we have reporting. Sometimes that doesn't always come, like my staff doesn't always know exactly what's going on before that violation notice goes out. That's something I'm working on to improve the communication between what compliance is doing and field staff, so that we can have that at least alert an operator and say, hey, we've got something's coming. We just want to make you aware. You don't have a formal process for incorporating the permittee plus the operator, but that's an interesting idea. Just making sure that everyone's aware of what's happening, what's coming. But generally, my staff, I think, when we know violation notices, generally we have some communication with the operator. But we have, anyway, some situations that we've gotten, again, our section 31 process, that's our violation notice process. So we issue a violation notice, and if we don't get a timely response, like you said, something gets tucked under the clerk, puts it in a stack, forgets about it, and then we go past our day that allows for a response, and then that will sometimes just automatically push it. It's a problem we don't want, and so we're working on systems and trying to update the way we communicate, not just paper. We want to get where, again, we're using the technologies that are available to communicate more efficiently and avoid those kinds of problems. But incorporating the operator, it's something.
Same note, but you mentioned the reviewing permits earlier. That's been an obstacle in a lot of communities. A lot of operators in small systems have this. Implement to work through the general mailbox and maybe the engineer that reached
trying to make it where the communication, like, we can utilize the technology, like, get it out and have not just a paper copy going to Village Hall and that make it much more feasible. I'm trying to get where the permit section will have an electronic copy sent to my staff. We have the same problem where a permit's issued and my field staff doesn't have a copy. We're like, there's 3 or 4 months lag time before we get a hard copy. Like, it's embarrassing to go and conduct an inspection with the previous permit. They're, oh no, we have this new permit. I mean, we're like Taylor said, our upper management is aware that Stone Age compared to a lot of different agencies in other states, and so we are working to make these improvements so that we're eliminating some of these kind of that's not being we're living and working here. So we are actively trying to
Yeah, I think
making it where it's not just one point of contact. I think it makes a lot of sense. Where permittee plus an operator, let's incorporate that electronic communication. Everyone knows what's coming. No surprises.
we've been working with these antiquated database systems for so long, and I think it's worked well so far, but I think we're quickly approaching a wall, and the agency is aware of that. Any other questions? Awesome.